Have you ever noticed how the strongest moments between a man and a woman don't need words? You don't ask. You don't explain. You don't beg. It's like a silent current that pulls both of you into the same space, the same rhythm. A glance that lingers longer than it should. A pause in the conversation where her breathing changes. A closeness that makes the air heavy. That's intimacy without words. And the truth is, if you have to ask out loud, you've already broken the spell. Because desire isn't logical, it's primal. And the men who understand this don't negotiate intimacy, they command it by presence alone. Now here's the problem. Most guys have been trained the opposite way. They think they need to get her permission slip first, to check if she's ready, to avoid rejection by putting everything into words. And what happens? They kill the energy before it even begins. They make her feel like she's in a boardroom, not a bedroom. Women don't give themselves to men who need verbal confirmation every step of the way. They give themselves to men whose energy makes her want to lean in, not pull back. The kind of man who makes her feel safe, yet excited. The kind of man who communicates with his eyes, his silence, his touch, his patience. Think about Marcus Aurelius, who said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That applies here more than ever. Stop asking, stop convincing, stop performing. Be the man whose presence answers the question before it's even asked. Because when she knows, not in her mind but in her body, that you're that man, intimacy becomes inevitable. Here's the hard truth most men don't want to face. When you ask for intimacy, you're already admitting you don't have it. It's like a king begging for his own crown. The moment you lower yourself to request it, the power shifts. And that's the mistake countless men make. They lean on words because they don't trust their presence. They use questions as a shield against rejection. Is this okay? Do you want this? Should I? And every time those words leave your lips, the tension collapses. What could have been fire turns into awkwardness. Women feel energy before they process words. She can tell if you're uncertain, if you're waiting for her to validate you, if you're more afraid of being rejected than you are committed to standing in your masculine truth. This is why so many men end up in the friend zone. Not because they're unattractive, but because they've trained her nervous system to feel no polarity. No pull. Just safety without edge, and safety without edge is friendship, not intimacy. The challenge is this: most men confuse politeness with attraction. They believe being careful, cautious, and overly communicative is respectful. And yes, respect is necessary, but it's not what ignites desire. Respect creates trust, but presence creates heat. When a man over-explains his every move, he strips away the mystery. He erases the unspoken dance. He turns what should be instinctive into a business transaction. This is where you need to wake up. Because every time you rely on words to secure intimacy, you're showing her that you don't yet embody the quiet authority she craves. And here's the brutal irony. The more you ask, the more she resists. Not because she doesn't want intimacy, but because you've made it something she has to decide on instead of something she naturally falls into. Think about this. Intimacy is not a contract she signs after you've presented the right words. It's a current, an undercurrent, that pulls her in without asking permission every step of the way. Evolution wired it this way. For millions of years, women selected men not by what they said, but by what their presence communicated without words. A steady gaze, the calmness under pressure, the unshakable way he carried himself. Those weren't just signals of confidence. They were signals of safety, protection, and strength. Her biology is still reading those cues today. This is why the man who fumbles over explanations never feels magnetic. He may be liked, even appreciated, but he's not desired. Because desire doesn't respond to verbal negotiation. It responds to tension, to subtle signals that bypass logic and sink into instinct. When you lean in, when your body language speaks certainty, when your silence stretches just long enough to build electricity, she feels it in her gut. That's when intimacy stops being a decision and becomes a surrender. Look at it through the lens of Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius never had to announce, "I am calm, I am strong, I am in control." His stillness said it for him. A Stoic man understands that power is demonstrated, not declared. When you bring that same principle into intimacy, you stop chasing validation with words and start radiating certainty through presence. She sees it, she feels it, and she trusts it far more than anything you could say. Here's the harsh reality. Women aren't waiting for a man to ask, "Can I?" They're waiting for a man whose very energy says, "I can." That doesn't mean being reckless or disrespectful. It means being tuned in enough to sense her signals, confident enough to move with clarity, and masculine enough to create the unspoken invitation she can step into without hesitation. That's what makes intimacy flow without words. Not tricks, not lines, but a living embodiment of certainty. Here's the moment most men never reach. They think intimacy is something they have to convince a woman into. But the truth is far sharper. Intimacy is never something you ask for, it's something you allow her to give. And she only gives it when she feels the man in front of her has the gravity to hold it. That's the shift, from seeking permission to embodying presence. From talking your way in, to creating a space where words aren't even necessary. This is why so many guys fail. They're waiting for the perfect line, or they're afraid of misstepping, so they hesitate, they chatter, they dilute the very tension that would have pulled her in. Meanwhile, the man she chooses doesn't explain himself. He doesn't beg. He doesn't try to paint a picture with words. He is the picture. His stillness, his certainty, his ability to stay rooted in himself. That's what tells her, without saying a word, "You're safe here. You're desired here." And that's all it takes. Once you see this, everything flips. You stop thinking of intimacy as this hurdle you have to cross, or a prize you have to win. You start to see it as an exchange of energy, one where your role isn't to prove yourself, but to be yourself fully. When your presence is unshakable, when your body language aligns with your intention, when your silence holds more weight than 1,000 words, she doesn't need an invitation. She steps in on her own. And that's the liberating truth. Intimacy without words isn't about doing more, it's about doing less. It's about stripping away the performance, the over-explaining, the insecurity, until all that's left is the core of your masculine energy. That core, when held with calm strength, doesn't just ask for intimacy, it commands it. So how do you live this out in the real world? How do you take this epiphany, that intimacy is created, not asked for, and actually embody it the next time you're with a woman? It starts with your awareness. The moment you walk into her space, your body is already speaking for you. The way you sit, the way you hold your shoulders, the steadiness of your eyes, all of it tells her whether you are a man she can lean into or a man she has to guard herself against. If you fidget, explain, or chase, you kill the very energy you need. But if you slow down, if you breathe deeply, if you hold the silence and let her feel you in that quiet, the message lands without a word. Think about it like this. A lion doesn't announce itself when it walks into the room. It doesn't roar for attention. Its presence is enough. You need to adopt the same principle. When you're with her, don't rush. Don't fill every gap with words. Let your pauses breathe. Look at her with an intensity that doesn't demand, but reveals. The more at ease you are in your own skin, the more she will lean into you. And when she does, you don't have to ask. Her body language, her closeness, the softness in her voice, those are the invitations. Here's the move. Instead of trying to cross the distance with words, shorten the distance with action. When the moment feels right, step closer, not forcefully, but with calm certainty. Let your touch be deliberate, not nervous. If she's in tune with you, she'll respond naturally, without resistance. And here's the secret. If she doesn't lean in, if she doesn't respond, you don't push. You don't explain. You don't plead. You pull back with the same calmness you entered with. That's what separates a man who embodies Stoicism from a man who's just desperate for validation. Because here's the truth. Women aren't waiting for men to talk them into intimacy. They're waiting for men who create the unshakable container where intimacy feels inevitable. That's what your presence, your silence, your grounded action does. You don't ask with words. You ask with who you are. And when you live from that place, she gives herself without a second thought. Here's what you need to remember, brother. Intimacy is not something you chase. It's not something you beg for. And it damn sure isn't something you negotiate through clever lines or scripted moves. It's the natural outcome of who you are when you stop trying to prove yourself and start embodying yourself. When you stand firmly in your own frame, when you breathe without hurry, when your eyes tell her you're already enough, that's when she feels it. Not because you asked, but because she chose to meet you there. Most men will spend their lives fumbling this part. They'll talk too much, they'll over-explain, they'll beg for permission like little boys waiting for a mother's approval. And because of that, they'll never understand why she feels distant, why she pulls away, why intimacy feels so damn complicated. But the man who learns to sit in silence, the man who doesn't rush, the man who understands that his presence is the message, that man never has to ask. He makes women want to step closer, because his energy speaks louder than his words ever could. So the next time you're in that moment, when her eyes linger, when the silence feels charged, when the air between you could catch fire, don't ruin it with chatter. Don't break it by seeking reassurance. Hold it, own it. Step into it with calm certainty. Because intimacy isn't requested. It's claimed without a single word. And when you understand that, you stop being the man who waits, and you become the man she never forgets.